Ah yes, T.B.Photo X1.5TFX, and welcome back to another video. Well, it has been a long time since the last time I've actually shown my face in the square, so to speak, but anyway.
In this episode, a rotating Super-8 movie camera, a fall that some people make it down, and some don't. A rotary machine that makes home development a breeze. Another rotary machine that causes a stiff breeze. Me fanboying over a DVD lecture. And I am hanging film up to dry.
Anyway, yeah, there has been a little bit of a thing going on here now at the filming of this video. It is May the 1st, 2023. So that is that yesterday was last April. So the last of April, which is Valborg. And if you know anything about the town I live in, Uppsala, beside that it is a student town, it's also that Valborg is a very great big celebratory high point of the spring. So yeah, the thing is, as you know from last year, my little fiasco, I am in the diving club, UDK Tumlaren, link to the homepage in the description below. But anyway, we are basically the safety divers during Valborg and the Flottrace. And today, or rather this year, it was about 120-ish floats that were participating in the race. So we were the ones that were pulling up people as they capsized during the first of the two waterfalls they have to go down. Yeah, so that was all well and good. I was designated on land this time. I'm not gonna redo the flop I did last year. We'll link to that video in the description. But anyway, I did do some photography that time as well. And what did I use for that occasion? I'm gonna show you some images here as well. Yeah, I don't think that this beast has been shown in videos before. I actually got this one used. It is Nikon D4 of all things. I managed to get this, and I have the 35 to 70 millimeter 2.8D version. It's a push-pull lens. Yes, I know it's archaic by this point in time, but I would rather say that this lens still is very much valid, because look at the images I managed to get with it and so on. So it really was a bit of a good choice for my opinion.
Also outside of Uppsala is the Air Force Base F-16, so their display team decided to drop in during the festivities. Another special guest this year was that Channel 4 and their news station had bought a special raft with a dedicated slot time, so it would be sending live images from the float race with the reporter Marcus Notarius as the captain. But I don't think this really was his preferred way to spend Valborg. Well, I've been in the drink before here in Fyrisån, so yeah, Marcus, I really feel for you, man. I know it is kind of abrupt how cold the water actually is. But still, greatly done, man. Also, naturally, I took some video myself. You can't really not do it when you have the first row seat as we do in the dive club. But also a note where the thing is that all the video I took here from the Flottrace is also filmed with the D4. So yes, it's not really known for being a great video camera. It is primarily, as stated, a stills camera for professional use, but as you can see, it actually pulls fairly decently with a decent lens as a video camera as well.
yes, I know that this is basically, it was Nikon's flagship camera, and it was made primarily for press photographers and so on. It's a 16 megapixel camera, from if memory serves, but still really much valid. I managed to snag this very cheaply on Tradera, this and actually a second body as well. Reason, this has over 400,000 shutter actuations, so it is a really high shutter count camera. No need in beating around the bush with that one. So the reason it was a low price is that it has been really well used. So yes, it's a pro level body and so on, but it has been beaten around the block, so to speak. So yeah, what else? Yeah, before we go into this main part of the video, I would rather say that a couple of videos ago I talked about a photographer that I had really recently been able to, you know, or rather that I had, what should we say, discovered fairly recently, Dean Collins, a guy that was a commercial photographer and a brilliant one to boot, with all his ideas of light manipulation. And I actually dedicated an entire episode about the videos, the DVD I managed to get with him, the Fine Light series of, you know, the fold-outs from Fine Light about photographic lighting, and even the book that I managed to get with some of his and his contemporaries' ways of lighting different subjects. But what I actually managed to find as well is the DVD I had mentioned that I wanted to get. It's from a lecture Dean held in 1991 at Brooks Institute. I mean, if you're able to get this video, it's by Software Cinema. It basically says here, watch the master of photography and lighting in action. Reminded me that this man was a true genius. And yeah, but anyway, this video is a really pretty much a gem when it comes to photographic, a masterclass in photography. So if you're able to get this DVD, I would really recommend it, because the man talks a mile a minute, granted, but the advice he is given in this lecture, even though it is primarily for the era of film, it has aged very well, because the techniques and the way he talks about photographic lighting hasn't changed from film to digital, because light is light regardless how you put it. So I would really recommend, I can't recommend this enough. So yeah. Okay, so in essence here now, I have actually started, thanks to another YouTuber that I would do a shout out for, Filmboy24. Really great Florida man. That didn't sound right. Anyway, link to his channel in the description. He is a real master when it comes to both 8mm Super 8 and regular 8, and 16 and Super 16, so anything that has to do with cinema or video with film, or film photography when it's, you know, moving pictures. I would say that check his channel out. Really brilliant guy, and really great videos and content all together. So yeah, Filmboy24, link in the description. Anyway, yeah, here is a little bit of the film that I've been using, and for, you might sound, have I lost the plot completely? Kodachrome. This film stock has been obsolete for a while now. Yes, I know. This, for you guys who don't know, have you been living under a rock? Anyway, Kodachrome is a slide positive, a dia positive film that was introduced by Kodak, I think it's a 40s or 50s, and the difference between this and current day E6 positive film is that Kodachrome, it actually was developed as a 3-layer, or if I have understood this correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, I want to learn this, but anyway, E6, every layer of film color is developed by itself. But in Kodachrome, everything was developed as a black and white basically, and then it was put into color baths where actually the different color sensitive layers of film actually pulled the almost ink towards it. So it was first developed, then colorized, whilst E6 slide film, you basically have different baths that develop the color directly. So in that way, Kodachrome was a bit special, but in saying that, it was also known for having very rich, vivid colors. But that time is unfortunately past well behind us, because nowadays you can't develop Kodachrome anymore as a slide positive film. But there is a little bit of a but in this situation. You can develop it as a black and white negative film, and that's what I have done here. So the reason I've gotten a lot of Kodachrome is because, one, it is fairly inexpensive now compared to other Super 8 film stocks from primarily Kodak. Secondly, yeah, it is greatly expired by today's, most of these are almost 40 years expired. But if you get a Super 8 camera, you don't want to buy a very expensive film cartridge that is new and put it through the camera just to show that the camera is broken. So what I did was that I use old expired Kodachrome in order to test cameras and see if they work properly. So this is basically one of the top of the line cameras that I've been able to get. It's the Elmo Super 8 Sound 1012S XL. Yeah, it has at least one part that is broken on this camera, unfortunately. You can't do the macro shots with these one because there's supposed to be a little tab here that you're supposed to pull up and be able to twist it over to the macro setting, but that's gone unfortunately. I had to look into see if it is anyway viable to repair it. But besides that point, this camera has one of the features that I think is a must-have if you're gonna go into Super 8 photography or Super 8 filming today, and that is the ability to have an auto exposure. This camera has both for sound actually, because there in a time they existed Super 8 sound cartridges. I have a few of them in the freezer, but I'm not planning on using them. They're more as a part from a bygone era. But anyway, the camera has some very nice features. There are a couple of Canon models that are very high in price nowadays, but this Elmo was actually quite cheap in comparison, but it's still a made in Japan Super 8 camera with a ton of brilliant features. So you can have this as either single, 18 or 24 frames a second. Super 8 was primarily a 18 frames a second camera system or film system. 24 is more of a modern day cinema style, so you can use that, although in the old days 24 frames a second was more of a slow motion type feature. But anyway, the control here for auto is that you can actually auto or manual, so the ISO of the film is constant. The shutter angle, because this doesn't have shutter speeds, they talk more about shutter angles, and that's an entire video in its own right. But the camera will actually have a shutter angle that will translate into a shutter speed that is roughly 1/30th of a second at 18 frames a second. So in order to do that, you can actually use an external light meter for the light, and then you can dial in your aperture manually, and that's the reason I got this camera, because I can actually change if I want to underexpose or overexpose the image to my liking. Most Super 8 cameras were consumer. They were not made really for professional use. They were made so that you would film your family at different events and so on, and home videos and so on, home movies I should probably say. But all in all, this is a great camera that I've used now, and we are gonna do two things now. First, we're gonna go over my development method. I have my own little DIY thing that I have done to develop film at home. I don't own one of those now fairly expensive Lomo tanks. I have actually used a Patterson tank, but more about that later. So yeah, I think we're gonna do a break here and go over and see how I did it with developing.
Yes, so we are in the middle of the developing process here. In the meantime here, I am actually trying to remove the remjet layer, which I'm doing with bicarb soda here, bicarbonate, which I bought at Clas Ohlson, and I'm using a sepia chrome from Ilford developing motor base to rotate the developing tank with the film inside, so I get constant rotation and agitation of the film. So I use duct tape in order to prevent the lid from falling off during the rotation, because it takes a lot of time. And here you're gonna see the water inside with the bicarb is very dark, almost black in color. Why is it that? Well, it is because it has done its job and removed as much as possible of the remjet. Remjet is something that is on cinema film in order to prevent excess friction in the camera. So it is a little bit of a, I think it's a carbon-based layer that needs to be removed in order to get a good film print as an end result. So I am rinsing and repeating about 3 times and shaking in between, as you'll see in the images here. And that's basically to remove as much as possible of the remjet and also to remove as much of the bicarb I am using as possible in order to prevent cross-contamination. Yes, so now it's time for the developer. I will put the Durst timer on 20 minutes, and that's because I am using a fairly low dilution of the Ilford ID11 developer. Always be cautious and read the safety information on the packages, because these are chemicals we are dealing with. The reason I'm using also then 1 to 3 is because it's a compensating developer, and then also the low dilution means that I need a longer developing time. So yeah, 1 to 3, and I'm using 1 liter of a solution, so that's 2.5 deciliters of stock solution and 7.5 deciliters of water. And for you Canadian viewers here, I'm gonna quote Red Green that if women don't find you handsome, they should at least find you handy, so we're gonna use the Handyman Special duct tape. I find the motor base to be a very good tool in the toolbox in order to get constant agitation, but a fair point of warning is that the drum can actually start to creep on the motor base as it rotates. So if you're going to try this yourself, that's a little bit of a pointer to be wary of, that it can actually start to creep on you and in the worst case scenario fall off. The developing phase is soon over, and then we're gonna do Ilford stop to stop any further developing. There are other ways of doing it, but this is the one I use and have had good success with. Later we're gonna do fixative, and I'm using the ADOX, which also has been a very good product that I've used many times before, so I would really recommend it to anybody out there who is wanting to use a cost-effective fixative. So ADOX ADOFix Plus, really recommended. part with Ilford ID 11 is that it is a one-shot developer, regardless of the dilution used. So just rinse it one quickie, and then we're just gonna pour in the yellow liquid here, which is the Ilford Stop that has been diluted out to the manufacturer's instructions. And yeah, I'm not gonna use the motor base really with this one, but just pour it all in, put the lid on, and shake it for a couple of minutes in order to make sure that the developing has truly stopped. Another tip when you're pouring out the stop bath is that it has a tendency to foam, so if you spill a little bit like I did, it's a good idea to rinse off the flask under the faucet and so on after you have poured it back into the container. So now we're gonna go over to Fixative, and I've set the timer for 8 minutes, or 7 minutes, excuse me, and we're just gonna pour in. This is a 1:4 dilution of the Ilfa Fix Plus. So yeah, pour it all in, a little bit of a showmanship here in order to look good for the camera. And after all of it's in, just try to put the lid on and tape it all up as quick as possible and put it on the motor base again for agitation. Also, a fairly good chemical practice is to rinse off the equipment when you have time to do it. And now I'm also just going to prepare the sinks here in order to receive the film when we're completely done. So I'm just going to put the in the basin here. So I'm going to fill it up with some lukewarm water, and I'm actually also going to fill this bowl up with water in order to take the film to the bathroom. And I'm just using some washing up liquid here in order to it acts a little bit like a drying agent, so the film will actually dry quicker. So yeah, we are now a bit ready here for the end of the fixing phase, and yeah, there the bell goes, and now it's a moment of truth. I've just made ready here some containers with lukewarm water in order to just rinse the film a couple of times before we pull it out all together, and yeah, just rinse off any residue of the fixative. So yeah, here we go again, a little bit of a shake. Oh yes, now it's time. It's time to open the lid and see the fruits of the labor and see if we have just cocked it up or, well, yeah, it looks like flat spaghetti, black spaghetti right now, but having a little bit of a quick look at the window light, there are images on this film. So yeah, we're just gonna untangle this, and you know what's coming. Yeah, cue the music. Ah yes, and here's a little bit of my invention here that I made with a film spool, some monofilament fishing wire, some black duct tape, and this Patterson tank. So I might do a more of a close-up on it in the future, but yeah, it kind of works for my purposes at least. Yes, the home stretch. Now it's just 2 parts remaining. Hanging up the film for drying, and a couple of hours after that, just let it dry completely, then load it up on a Super-8 spool and put it through the scanner. So here we go.
Welcome back. Yeah, so as you can see here, it's a bit of a job, and the developer I used, ID11, is basically chemically almost identical to Kodak D76. I think it's a bit of maybe a preservative, so to speak, that is the difference between the two. But as I've seen in another YouTube channel, can't remember the name off the top of my head, but I'm gonna put a link in the description as well to that video on why I chose to use a 1 to 3 parts dilution of the ID11. So yeah, that's a little bit of it, and the 2 rolls that I put through it here in the middle of April, I'm just gonna show the video. It's gonna come here now. yeah, as you can see here, I got a little bit of a feeling of Wolf on Wall Street there during the takeoff, but yeah, it's all good fun and so on. So yeah, if you're interested in starting your own journey in Super 8 photography or Super 8 filmmaking, I would rather say that have a good look around about cameras, stay away from the ones that says untested, because you have to be fairly, I don't know how to put it, but I don't think it requires that much intelligence to put a couple of AA batteries in a camera and check if the motor whines or not. That's kind of a no-brainer. So in that, by that aspect alone, stay away fairly good from non-tested cameras. But yeah, I think that this is Tobias Bergström from T.B.Photo X 1.5 TFX, now including Super 8, I might add. And yeah, I hope to see you in the next video. And as you see, spring is coming, and that means summer is also not that far away. So yeah, I have some new ideas in my head on what I want to do, both with film, photography, film video making, and everything in between when it comes to image making. So yeah, all is good that is good, and so on and so forth, and I'm trying to make some more videos in the future here on this channel. So all in all, yeah, thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe and all of that jazz. So see you in the next one. Take care from now on. Bye.